to my winter foundation routine. Today I'm going to show you guys all the steps I do for the face portion of my makeup. I do some things different in the winter just because it's so dry because of the weather, you know, Chicago. But if you'd like to see how I do my face, just keep watching and we'll get right into it.
So the first and most important step before you do anything to your face, you need to put on a moisturizer to combat dry skin. The one I'm using here is by Boots. It's the Expert Shine Control Lotion. It's really moisturizing. It's not going to leave you looking dry, but it's also not going to leave you looking oily. After your moisturizer is dried, the next thing you're going to put on before any foundation is a primer. This one is called Get Poreless Pore Minimizer by Femme Couture. I got it at Sally's. It's just going to be the layer between your skin and the foundation. It's not going to let the foundation seep into any lines or wrinkles or pores or anything like that. So for my under eyes, I'm using a different primer. This one is Urban Decay's Primer Potion. It's specifically for the eye area. It's going to keep my under eye concealer from going into any lines and creasing, which is really annoying. The next step after primer, I'm going to put a little bit of concealer under my eyes before the foundation. I'm using one in a yellow tone. Yellow is the opposite of purple on the color wheel, so that means if you put yellow on purple, it's going to mute it out. It's just like mixing paint. Now it's time for foundation. I'm using Pro Longwear by MAC. It's a full coverage foundation. You have to be careful with full coverage makeup in the winter if you're really dry. So what I'm going to do to combat that dryness, I'm going to be using a wet sponge. Just get it wet, wring it out, and then use that instead of a brush to put on your foundation. That's going to add moisture to the skin, and it's not going to seep into any of the dryness you have on your face. So you're just going to use the sponge's tip to apply the foundation to the face, and then these sponges are not meant to be used in a wiping motion. What you're going to want to do is pat the foundation into the skin. It's going to give you a really flawless and streak-free finish. The next thing I like to do is put some Aquaphor on my lips. This is the best stuff if you have dry lips in the winter. After I'm done with foundation, I'm going to be using a different concealer. This one is by Sonia Kashuk. It's about 1 to 2 shades lighter than the foundation I'm using. And the reason for doing this, I really want to highlight the under eye area to make sure there's no darkness. Key for doing concealer, don't just put it on the dark area. You're going to want to put it on the area of the dark circle and around all the way up the cheekbone. That way you're going to cover it, you're not going to highlight it. That's the opposite of what you want. Now I'm going to take a flat top brush. This one's by BH Cosmetics, and I'm dipping back into that BH Cosmetics concealer palette just to cover up any blemishes, any redness that the foundation did not cover. I'm all done with the foundation now, but before I apply any powder, what I like to do next is my eyebrows. This way, it's going to give my face just a few minutes to kind of settle into the skin, and then after I'm all done with my eyebrows is when I'm going to move on to powder. I'm not going to talk about my eyebrow tutorial here because I have a whole other separate video showing you every single step on how I do my eyebrows. That video will be linked below. If you want, you can check it out. The wintertime, you want to avoid using as much powder as you can. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this high definition under eye setting powder by the brand e.l.f. This is just going to go under the eye and on top of the lid to set the concealer there. And then next, using the same fluffy brush by e.l.f., I'm going to dip into my rice powder by Palladio. I'm going to use this sparingly on the rest of my face for the foundation. I'm only going to be using it in the areas where I really, really need it. The next step is going to be the contour. Here I'm using the Hoola Bronzer by Benefit. It's really great because it doesn't have any shimmer, so it's going to look really natural. Just going to be applying it with an angled face brush. Just go in super, super lightly into the product. It is really pigmented. And then the key is to build up slowly. If you put it on real intense at first, it's going to look really unnatural, really harsh. What you want to do, put on a really thin layer, and then if you want more, just keep adding thin layers. The places where I'm going to put this is the hollows of the cheeks, so just make a fish face to find where that is. I'm going to drag it up a little bit to the temples. If you feel like you have a large forehead, you want to contour that. You can put a little bit at the top near the hairline. Bring it down to the jawbone, and then under the chin and a little bit down the neck just to blend in. Make sure your face is all the same color. So the next step I'm going to take a different brush just to blend out the edges to make sure it really looks natural. This next step is optional. It's something I typically don't do on an everyday basis, but I thought I'd throw it in to show you guys how it's done. I'm going to take a fluffy brush and dip it a little bit into the Hoola Bronzer, and I'm going to be using this to contour my nose. What you want to do, make sure you don't use a lot. Like I said, it can be obvious. Just really lightly dust the product from all the way from your eyebrow straight down to the tip of your nose. This is going to make your nose appear thinner. When you get to the tip, just kind of draw a little circle around the tip of your nose just so it doesn't look too straight. You know, it's a nose, it has some shape. You still want it to have shape. Next is blush. I'm going to be using one of the colors from the 10 color palette called Glamorous Blush by BH Cosmetics, and a real big fluffy brush by Real Techniques. This brush is great because it is not dense. So if you go little by little, put the product on, it will look natural. One tip for blush that's really pigmented is to hold the brush at the end. That way you're going to be putting less pressure on. It's going to lightly dust on the color so you don't have a really intense blush. This next step is also something optional. What I like to do instead of using a powder highlight in the winter is to use a really light concealer. That way, like I said before, you're going to avoid using a lot of powder on the skin. I'm taking another color from the concealer palette I used earlier. I'm just going to use my finger and real lightly just pat it in to above the cheekbone just to highlight that area. I'm going to put it on the top of my nose to highlight the nose, the cupid's bow, and a little bit on the chin.
Hello. You're in my video right now. Wait, hold on. Say hi.
The final and a really important step in this tutorial is to spray your face with a setting spray. This one I'm using is the Makeup Mist and Set by e.l.f. It is going to add a little bit of moisture to the skin. It's going to get rid of any cakiness you might have. At the same time, it's going to ensure that you don't get shiny throughout the day. To finish off the look, I'm just going to line my lips, throw on some eyeliner, and curl my lashes, and we're all done.
That's it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. I'm going to show you guys today how I do my foundation in the winter because the Chicago weather got me fucked up, okay? Ready? Gorgeous.
Sexy.
So sexy. Are you ready to rumble? Hey y'all, welcome to Sarah G's. On today's video, I'm gonna make a cheesecake.